Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Hauswirth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
The reason you need to pay attention to what is happening there is because the United States has recognized Israel as one of its strongest allies in the Middle East. People that want death to Israel, they chant death to Israel, death to Jews. They also chant death to America. That border was one of the most fortified borders always watched. You take a look at our southern border and what's happening down there, where we can't even build a wall and the people are flooding in. We have no idea who is flooding into America. We could be seeing attacks like this where they're just driving around randomly shooting. We're always told you don't need an AR-15. Well, there may be a time where if they are just driving around the streets of St. Louis and randomly just shooting whomever they see on the street, they could be hiding amongst these people coming across our border and becoming sleeper cells here. So I would say, yes, we do need to care about what's going on there, as well as what's going on our southern border.
That's Republican state lawmaker from the St. Charles area, Adam Schwadron, yesterday here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That is why we should care. He is absolutely right, because we've been saying this for a long time. You look at what's happening at the southern border, and millions of people coming across. There's no checks. There's no balances of what's happening. And it's not just people from Mexico and South America that are coming in, because we don't know who's coming in since January the 20th of 2021. It is so bad with illegal immigration that J.D. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, is almost literally on his knees looking up. And I don't know where his eyes come on the president, if he's on his knees in front of the president, but he's going, please, President Magoo, please help us. Please help our friends in New York and Washington, D.C. I know we're sanctuary cities, and we say that we'll take all these people and help them, but we can't do it anymore. These are pretty big problems. Chris Arps, chrisarps.com, 635. We've got to get some more of his takes. We are covering the reaction from your elected Missouri servants. One of them especially is just stunning. Just stunning. Good morning. Welcome into the show. By the way, one of our guest co-hosts, Steve Spellman, is here this morning.
Hey, good morning, folks.
By the way, and there's John Marsh. Good to have you back, bud.
Good morning.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Stephanie Bell's got to be back later this week. Brian Hauswirth is here. My name is Branden Rathert. If there's something that we can do for you, something on your mind, you want to get something off your chest, you have a thought, please feel free to text. We're in the 573 area code here across all of mid-Missouri, 573-874-9390. That's 874-9390. And here's some facts and points of frustration that I want to point out to you. Here's John Kirby last night, CNN, and talking about what's been happening since Israel was attacked and then declared war.
Sorry, it's very, excuse me, very difficult to look at these images, Jake.
So he's getting all broken up, and I'm wondering, and I think this is a very reasonable question. There is more than one report from credible news sources. I wonder if he's getting choked up because he's going, dang it. All the weapons and equipment that we left in Afghanistan 2 years ago? Remember all this? We just left there and left some lives of Americans. And people said, that stuff could get in the hands of terrorists. And me and President Magoo were like, oh, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they buried it in the sand over there.
Yeah.
It went away.
Just the same place they buried their heads and asses. So that's why I'm wondering if that's why he's on the TV crying, going, man, I'm partly responsible for this. Democrats, they are responsible for this, leaving those weapons there. And there were some people that said, and this is not about I told you so, but this is a moment where we can go to our Democrat friends, people like the mayor of the San Francisco of the Midwest, Barbara Buffalo, people like David Tyson Smith, and any other Democrat that thinks this stuff is okay. You can say, now, see, this is why nobody should be voting for Democrats, because that's what they do. They leave weapons in Afghanistan, and now apparently Hamas now has those weapons that Joe left there, and they're using them to attack. You heard Adam Schwadron say, one of our strongest allies in the Middle East. And that's what's happening. And that's why these things matter.
I think, by the way, the interview, Branden, with Representative Schwadron, I thought was very important, very educational, and as you pointed out, important for why it's important for people here locally. So that's up on our website, 939theeagle.com and kws.com. Two reactions I want to direct people's attention to. You're talking about reactions from Democrats. Congresswoman Cori Bush, on her statement, called for, and Vivek Malik went after her last night on Twitter. She's called for, and I'll let you guys respond, I know you do, but Vivek Malik really upset because she called for an end to essentially military, I take it military aid to Israel. But I also want to point, to be fair here, you're talking about Democrats, Senator Schumer is I mean, this is what he read about the demonstration in Times Square. This is the Democratic leader in the Senate, and it's this is a position that I think a lot of our listeners probably would agree with. It says this, quote, "I can't think of anything more ill-timed and cold-hearted than today's demonstration in Times Square. We have seen unprecedented viciousness coming from Hamas aimed at innocent families and children. Everyone, no matter your views, should condemn this brutal act." And that's from the Senate Democratic leader, Charles Schumer from New York. So clearly, it is interesting. We're getting different positions from different people, but I at least wanted to point that out.
And most Democrats, as a matter of fact, Cori Bush and other folks in the squad, I really do believe these are people that they hate America. I'm going to prove my point why and let you know this is not just a talking point, but some of the things that they're saying. And I mean, you've got one progressive Democrat, Mr. Torres, Richie Torres out of New York, criticizing people like Cori Bush because she says things like this: violations of human rights do not justify more violations of human rights, and a military response will only exacerbate the suffering. And that is par for the course for somebody who is unthinking like Cori Bush. So she's saying, in effect, Israel should not be defending themselves. That's what she's saying. And that's what she does. It's, for example, when these people go and loot and shoot and steal people's livelihoods and businesses, and then those people that do get arrested, she's against that. So this is very consistent. Very consistent, but not for her because she has bodyguards and law enforcement to protect her. Steve, how do you all react to all this?
Yeah, and if somebody comes to the Capitol and a congressman or congresswoman feels threatened, well, they're certainly going to have a security response. There's, if there's a terror type act that might threaten them and their livelihood, they will have force at their disposal to defend against that. So it's a virtue signaling thing. It's gone across kind of the left wing spectrum. They have to say these things to be in with the cool crowd and their supporters and that machine. So whether it's Cori Bush or the squad or whomever, it's just a very educational moment. You see this very very tangible situation that's going on in Israel, and this is a response that might as well be from the moon.
But I think it points out, and certainly it has upset some people. Vivek Malik being.
I don't even think they're thinking about it. I don't even think there's facts involved. It's just
if you go to Cori Bush's Twitter page and you look, guys, at the responses, she's getting responses from people that are voters in her district. They're saying they don't agree with it, but her supporters are saying it doesn't matter. You didn't win the election. So I mean that's out there. But it is worth pointing out that if you look at those two statements from Chuck Schumer and Cori Bush, they're Schumer actually told the Chinese, according to what he said, told the Chinese officials that were there to ramp up their statements, make them stronger about the attack. So the point is that Schumer and Bush are not on the same page there.
Different constituency maybe in New York.
Yeah. Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, he's on the same page as Cori Bush. This guy's one of the folks who's in charge of national security. He at least had some decency in deleting a statement in which he said that Israel should not be defending itself. We know you got shot, but you shouldn't defend yourself. That's exactly like we see on the streets in these very liberal cities all across America. Let the people loot and shoot. Don't put them in jail for stealing people's livelihoods. You shouldn't defend yourselves. That's what Democrats like Anthony Blinken and Cori Bush are saying. You shouldn't defend yourself.
Yeah, and these politicians, they're from the moon. I mean, they're just out of this world, not reality. But, our everyday average, liberal person, friend and acquaintance, family member you run into, they're not trying to be mean. They're listening to the CNNs and stuff and this propaganda about this stuff. And, I think they're trying to be nice, and they say, the Palestinians, they're refugee camp, how mean that is. Well, there's a deeper thing.
Yeah. Hannah, do I sound cranky this morning? I believe I'm on point. I don't sound cranky, do I?
No, not this morning. Not on this specific topic. Maybe other topics, but...
Gerald is in Columbia. Gerald, welcome to the show. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, I just can see clearly that the same people that are marching in New York are obviously the same people. They don't have their black suits on. They're not burning down the courthouses. Those are the insurrectionists, because if they support somebody coming into a house and shooting everybody there and murdering children in schools and kidnapping people, that is not any way American. I mean, and then to say that, and it always happens as soon as Israel starts to get the even hand, then everybody starts coming against them. But we have people walking around the Capitol and they get 6 years in prison. And then I know if they investigated those people that were marching against Israel, they'd find out like 99% of them were either giving money or actually in the actual rioting. I call it rioting because if you're setting stuff on fire and burning stuff down and breaking into things and causing all that violence and all that damage, that's obviously a riot. But they just refuse to say that.
Yep.
And Blinken refuses to say, all they have to do is shut that money off. He goes, it's not being used for that. But what it is they go, okay, we got this money now. We're going to take all that other money, and then we're going to take all these weapons, and then we're going to plan something. And Iran says, yeah, go, do it. We got money now because the Americans are stupid. And it's just like borders are crumbling everywhere. We got our border crumbling. We got the Ukraine crumbling. Now Israel. I mean, it's all because the greatest power in the free world is so weak. And Joe Biden is just mumbling around.
Mm-hmm.
And
Gerald, thank you for the phone call.
Right.
I agree with everything you're saying. I appreciate you calling in and get some of that stuff off your chest because you're right. And think about the reality of what people like Corey Bush or Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. Think about the reality of what they're saying here. And again, and I'm appreciative that Hannah's on the same page with me this morning, not being cranky. These are just facts and these are stories. And hopefully we hear some of this stuff tonight. Boone County GOP annual chili supper, Vivek Malik, who Hauswirth was just talking about, our state treasurer. He is going to be one of the featured speakers tonight. This is an opportunity for you to get involved. Matter of fact, you go to the website, BooneCountyRepublicans.com, order tickets for the event tonight. Steve Spellman is going to be there. I'll be emceeing the event. But think about what people like Anthony Blinken are doing. He is calling for Israel, did call, he pulled the post, called for Israel to cease fire. In other words, don't defend themselves. Don't defend themselves or their people who are being raped, brutally, viciously raped. He doesn't want them to defend themselves. He doesn't want them. That's the Secretary of State. Mass
Same
murder.
Administration that just freed up $6 billion for Tehran.
And then somebody tells you today, well, that money for, it didn't go to that.
Yeah.
They're flat out wrong. And the argument we use, if you won the Powerball and you got $1 billion,
political pressure the president's
Chuck
under.
Todd from MSNBC is fiscal policy. Wrong time to do it. And I think everybody who has any amount of intelligence to them agree with that. But it's not about fiscal policy. It's about Joe Biden needing some votes, man. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown. Steph is back on Friday. Joe Biden's second attempt at student loan cancellation, moving forward with a round of hearings that start today. Now, some other context here. The White House administration called lid yesterday. And I don't know what lid means in your book, but in the White House book, back in our day, Steve and John, I remember a lid of, it was a measurement of stuff that you should not be buying on a street corner at 2 o'clock in the morning in South St. Louis by Tower Grove Park. But when they call lid at the White House, it means the president is not available to the press. He is not doing anything. Now, this after the big barbecue, you know, they were roasting hot dogs and burgers while Israel is getting bombed. They're doing this at the White House. So then Monday, back to work, Joe not talking to the press. But we might know why, too, because he was also being questioned about the top secret documents that he had hidden in his Corvette, in the car, in the garage. Anyhow, so all this is going on. But he's getting together. He wants to cancel that student debt. He needs these votes from young people so badly. So it's a process called negotiated rulemaking. We're seeing right through it, Steve. 14 people chosen by President Magoo going to be meeting for the first of 3 hearings on student loan relief. Their goal is to guide the Education Department toward a proposal after the Supreme Court rejected Biden's first plan. So I get a lot of questions. People say, well, didn't the Supreme Court say that you can't do this? The mechanism that they were using at the time is illegal. They're trying every backdoor twist.
An end around. If you don't adhere to the Constitution and you're a big government type, it's, this plan A doesn't work. How about plan B through the back door? Plan C, plan D, and this plan D or whatever at this point. There'll be a plan E and F too.
Negotiators will come from outside the federal government, and they will represent a range of viewpoints on student loans. But they're all from people that will benefit from this. The NAACP, advocates. They'll hear from colleges. So they're going to be hearing from a bunch of people that will be like, yeah, we think it. So Joe's going to be surrounding himself with a bunch of people that think like him. Hey, I just want to pay this stuff off. I know that I'm taking producer Hannah's taxpayer dollars. I know that I'm taking Spellman and John Marsh's money. I know I'm taking their money and giving it to these people. And I'm also teaching a very bad lesson, and that you don't have to pay your stuff back. And the other thing, and this is the part that blows me away in all this. So if your student loan debt is forgiven, it helps your credit. It allows you to go out and get more loans.
What's wrong with that?
God. Stunning. Anyhow, so Joe's doing that. He needs votes because then all the young people, look what Joe did for us. He forgave student loans. Republican
What an intro.
Been a while since we've heard that song, and there's a reason we haven't heard that song in a while. It gets on people's nerves.
I like the Hannah song instead myself, but
No, we don't need to play that one.
it's
Steve.
less
No.
less popular in the house here.
We do have a Hannah version of that.
We're not playing it
of that song.
Now, Chris is the man.
Did I tell you that we use that for a commentary segment I do called Chris's Corner? And there was people who absolutely detested that. Chris, and there were people that loved it. But I think we did a poll, and I think more people liked it than disliked it. But, yeah, it causes strong feelings there.
But was it a Washington Post ABC poll?
So, Chris, am I hearing that you ripped off our segment?
I did. I did. But
man.
I did ask Brandon's permission about it later.
Later.
So you went with the whole, ask for forgiveness instead of permission route.
Yeah, exactly. It was just so good, I just had to steal it.
Oh, no. You're in the doghouse.
Oh.
Doghouse.
There it is.
One of the other things we have found, no matter whose name we put in there, whether it's John Marsh, John, who's here this morning. Good morning. Welcome. Glad you're back, bud.
Yes, sir.
You're Steve Spellman.
Good morning.
Steph is out today. That's producer Hannah over there. Brian Hauswirth is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Coming up an hour from now, I'm excited for this. Hannah did something she does all the time, but yesterday it was about this funeral home for sale in Massachusetts, and people on the realtor sign outside, they keep spray painting. House probably haunted, but we had some folks texting about they believe, honest to goodness, they live in a haunted house. We've got a couple of listeners. One of them is named Stephanie. Another one named Randy. They've agreed to come on like 7:35.
Is this Stephanie and Randy from our radio station?
Right, Randy Tobler hosts the Randy Tobler Show weekdays 4 o'clock. Stephanie Bell, who hosts Wake Up Mid-Missouri, they're coming on 7:35. Different Randy, different Stephanie. They've agreed to join us for a couple minutes, 7:35, and talk about what it's like to live in a haunted house. Yeah.
Are you sure that's their real names?
Chris Arps. ChrisArps.com is joining us here on the show. You see him on Newsmax television all the time. By the way, I was hanging out with the big guy over the weekend. We were swapping bags of cash, me and the big guy there in Jefferson County, Missouri. And he's got Newsmax on when I come in the house. I said, Dad, Christopher Arps is on Newsmax. And my dad looks at me like I'm an idiot. He says, yeah, I know. So my dad, he said, yeah, I see him all the time. He's like usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. He's on Newsmax. And he's smoking.
My fan club of 3.
Yeah.
You, my dad, you, my wife, and your dad.
The
I
big
love
guys.
you guys.
We love you too, man. Love the fact you were out and about this weekend. Big political event, Young Republicans. Wow. So Scott Fawn, Missouri Times. It's a Missouri-based political publication. I would recommend the Missouri Times. I also recommend ChrisArps.com. But at this Young People Republicans event, and apparently Bill Eigel, state senator, running for governor, is there. Jay Ashcroft, current Secretary of State, he is running for governor. And so what happened? You were there. What did you see, Chris?
I was there. I was an eyewitness. This was the St. Louis area Young Republicans annual barbecue fundraiser. It's a big gathering they have at the GOP headquarters in St. Louis County. They had 5 speakers slated to speak. All of these folks were running for office. And so the first speaker of the afternoon was Secretary Jay Ashcroft. And I think each person was allotted about 5 to 7 minutes. And what you expect at things like that, especially the Young Republican event, you expect the candidate to, give their standard stump speech, why you should vote for them, who they are, the issues of the day. Jay Ashcroft did that. He talked about the bills in legislature about limiting China to buy our farmland. He said that he supported that. He got some applause, of course, and after his speech, he sat down. Next was Senator Bill Eigel, of course, who was running for governor also. He came in and he talked about, the rhinos and what was happening in the legislature, but he also brought up the China bill, and they directly confronted Senator Ashcroft and said, or not Senator, Jay Ashcroft, and basically told people that what you have heard from Jay Ashcroft was a bald-faced lie. And that's a direct quote. And they kind of went back and forth, didn't get uncivil or anything. And Secretary Ashcroft had on his phone the bill that they were talking about. He started saying that, I supported the bill. They went back and forth.
So let me ask you this, Chris. I want to make sure we're seeing this. So Eigel, he's up at a podium, or he's up at the front of the room, up at the front of the place?
He's in front of the room with the microphone.
With the microphone. Ashcroft is seated. Bill Eigel starts calling.
Ashcroft was standing off to the side.
Standing off to the side.
You get the full picture. Yeah.
He pulls his phone out where here's the bill. So then he starts talking directly to, like they're talking back and forth to each other at this event?
Well, Bill Eigel confronted him. He said that what you heard from Jay Ashcroft was a bald-faced lie, and he started walking towards him and said, Jay, didn't you support this particular bill, blah, blah, blah. And Jay was saying, no, I didn't. I supported this part of the bill, and they kind of went back and forth.
So was it a candidate for him?
No, it wasn't a candidate for him. It was just give your speech, your 5-minute stump speech, and then you go to the next person. And, Senator Eigel felt that it was the place to confront Jay Ashcroft on that position. One thing that really people didn't like that I heard was that Senator Eigel brought in other people that were there to support his position. Yeah. Senator Hoskins was there. Senator Koenig, who was running for another office, another senator was there, and he was asking them to support his position, making it basically 3 against 1, and a lot of people felt that was unfair. People in the crowd were yelling at Bill Eigel to sit down. This is what you did in the legislature, and they were upset by that, and he got a lot of catcalls.
Chris Arps from ChrisArps.com is hanging out with us. See him on Newsmax all the time. He writes for Red State. So let me,
I was long-winded there, but
well, no, it's a lot of stuff, and I think it's important because that's what I was interested to know. Because I know people are into hot takes, and whenever Bill Eigel is on the show, boy, I really like what he has to say. And sure, we all like what he has to say, but I'm wondering about timing. And I'll go back and listen. I believe in decorum, grown folks, especially when you're an elected servant. But the reaction of the audience, were they like applauding what Bill Eigel's actions were? How did the
the audience was there to eat barbecue, hear your standard stump speech, have a good time, fellowship with fellow Republicans. A lot of people, I think, felt that was not the time or place for that. And as a political consultant, I can tell you that when you're not very well known and it's really at the beginning of a campaign, usually what you see candidates are doing are trying to talk about themselves, be autobiographical, and also talk about their positions, because that's what you want to cement in people's minds first, who you are and what you stand for, not so much being combative. And in a lot of people's minds, and I talked to people afterwards, after the thing, and they were not impressed and did not like that happened like that.
Yeah, maybe sparks flying. It sounds like maybe violated Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment or whatever. Don't say bad things about a fellow Republican, especially conservative boosters. It sounds like they're, hey, let's play nice. You want to tell us who you are, what you stand for. Maybe you have a disagreement with somebody, but you don't have to have the animosity there. Maybe it sounds like people were cool with that.
And it wasn't a forum because, you couldn't, Jay had his 5 minutes, and now it was Bill's turn for his 5 minutes. Jay really shouldn't have had an opportunity to respond because it wasn't that type of meeting. It was just standard stump speeches. And like I said, I said publicly I support Jay Ashcroft for governor. I said that on my show. I said that publicly, but I do have Bill Eigel on the show. I'm as fair as possible, even-handed when I ask questions and everything. So I just wanted to get that out there. But I just think it wasn't the time or the place to be combative like that. But I've heard within his camp is they take the old P.T. Barnum philosophy that any publicity is good publicity.
And here we are talking about Bill Eigel. We're not talking a whole lot about Jay Ashcroft and one of the at least financial front runners, current lieutenant governor. Mike Kehoe,
hanging out in the background.
That's right, hanging out in the background, making
got a
making
war chest.
And here's the thing:
yeah.
let's say any race, whether it's the gubernatorial race, you like the mindset of all three candidates, and then you have somebody like an Eigel who goes in. And I know, listen, the folks on the hard right are going to go, "Oh, I like that he does it. He calls stuff out." I don't. I completely disagree with those actions. Things like that. As much as I might, hey, you've got the same mindset as this guy, as this guy, as this guy. How do you behave as an elected servant? How do you behave as a grown man? That weighs heavily, at least for me. And we've got folks commenting.
And Brandon, we talked about this in other discussions on the radio and off the radio. Is there's only one Donald Trump, and there's only one person that can get away with the things that he does that are out of the norm when it comes to politics, and people will embrace that and love that. I think it will be very difficult for other politicians to try to duplicate that, especially when you're not as well known. And to be well known as strictly being combative, I don't know if that's a winning strategy.
Very good insight, Chris.
All right, Chris Farps, chrisfarps.com. We are going to continue our visit, talk about the Missouri angle as it relates to what's happening in Israel. It's coming up 5 minutes.
3, S&P 500 up 27.
Coming up 8:25, we'll look at your futures in the Morning Bell Business News with a little twist. We're covering this morning free pizza and price increases all at once, man. And one of the other things we might be covering on the show this morning, this make you feel good. There's a lot of heavy news this morning, Chris, isn't there? Chris Arps, ChrisArps.com. Yeah. So Steve and I might cover the top 10 causes of death for adults.
Dun, dun, dun.
What do you think, Hannah? You're my guide here. Should we cover top 10 causes of death? See, do you know?
It could be a fun distraction.
She's getting married. She don't want to talk about that.
Welcome
I
into
bet
the
you I
show.
know what the first top 3 are.
Okay, go ahead.
Falls, accidents, and fentanyl overdoses.
You're close.
1 out of 3.
Heart disease, cancer, and stroke. You're nowhere.
Nailed it.
Yeah, that's close.
You're close. All right, Chris Arps,
Yeah.
ChrisArps.com. Do us a favor. Go check out his website. You listen to him here for a long time here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. He has a website, ChrisArps.com, and he posts stuff on there. You see him on Newsmax TV. Definitely worth checking out. Slight little left-hand turn in the presidential race on the GOP side. We have a candidate that has dropped out of the race and throwing his support, all of his support, behind one candidate. Who dropped out, Chris?
Will Hurd dropped out, the African-American former congressman from Texas who is a former CIA officer. He did not make any of the debates because his support is non-existent.
And he's throwing his support behind Nikki Haley, who's largely third in polling, for what it's worth. But you have a qualifier, Chris.
Yeah, Nikki Haley is surging. She's had 2 good debates. Her fundraising has been very strong. DeSantis raised $15 million this last quarter. She raised $13 million. And if you look at polls in New Hampshire and Iowa, a few of them have her second and DeSantis at third. So she's having a moment right now and is surging. I don't know how much Will Hurd's endorsement helps her, but, can't help. Can't hurt, excuse me.
Yeah, and so then I wonder, so who's next? Is it a Burgum? Is it, did Asa Hutchinson? Well, so we got the mayor, Francis Suarez, Miami. He's dropped Asa Hutchinson. I don't even, because really it's Trump. It's Trump, DeSantis, Haley.
I think Christie or Burgum is probably your next couple that are going to be out.
Yeah.
And then after that, I would probably say Ramaswamy. His support is starting to crater after people kind of really take a look at him. And as I said before, he reminds me of a late-night commercial salesman where he's going to tell you how to buy real estate with no money down, with other people's money. That's who he reminds me of.
Now, Chris, we're forgetting about one very important candidate.
Who's that?
Joe Exotic, the Tiger King.
Is Joe running in the Republican primary? I haven't seen his polling.
I think he claims to have been running. He's in prison currently, so that's kind of put a damper on his campaign.
Well, but we got another guy that's running right now that could be going to prison or possibly going to prison, so that's not unprecedented.
And folks are saying, it doesn't matter. What affects me? My bank account, the economy, the safety of our country, and we're starting to see, and I think I'm hoping people are getting some clarity. People that think they're Democrats, I hope they're starting to get clarity when they see people like Cori Bush and how they're reacting to Israel, saying Israel shouldn't defend themselves. They're getting raped. They're getting murdered. In the progressive Cori Bush, they shouldn't be defending themselves. Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, deleting a tweet calling for a ceasefire. What do you mean a ceasefire? That would have been like George W. Bush on September the 13th, 2001, calling saying, hey, let's not do anything. Let's let these folks attack us. These people are, and hopefully, I'm hoping that progressives and Democrats starting to get some clarity on some of these things. Here's one thing I want to leave parting comments with Chris Arps. Ramaswamy, I know people like him. I love that he said when he was talking about the budget as it relates to the whole thing with the House Speaker, he said, why do we have to take last year's budget and say, okay, that's this year's budget? He said, let's just start at zero. What do you need? What do you need? Not what did we do last year, not what can we add on that, but here's the thing I'm getting on the streets. There's just something about him. And that's not, and that people can't define it. They're saying there's just something about him that they can't put their finger on.
It's a fresh
they said
approach,
that about-
but will he make it?
Yeah, all right.
They
Chris
said that
Arps.
about Jim Jones, too, probably.
Yeah, Chris
slaughter of Jewish people since the Holocaust. I never thought that I would live to see this day in my life, but it is time to take the gloves off. I'm tired of pussyfooting around with the terrorists. I'm tired of being politically correct. It is time to eradicate Hamas.
Congressman Mark Alford on our news partners ABC 17 last night. Some reaction from elected servants in the state of Missouri. Cori Bush, she's getting a lot of fire. She is consistent with her. She says violations of human rights do not justify more violations of human rights, is what she is saying, is that Israel should not be defending themselves. And that's true with Cori Bush. Think about Cori Bush when people go looting and shooting. She doesn't want those people to be arrested. She doesn't want people protecting themselves or taking care of things. She is completely against that. That is par for the course, says the woman who hires security, while she also says defund the police. So that's the mindset of Cori Bush. Pretty much everybody else is like, yeah, this is insane. And I'm glad you're here because I want to highlight, we had Adam Schwadron on right at this time yesterday morning. He is a state representative, a Republican, St. Charles area. He is Jewish. He joined us on the show to give us his point of view from a personal point of view, from a geopolitical point of view, and from a Missourian point of view. And I thought, to me, this was the most, because in my mind, he said it all in 1 minute. And I want you to hear this here, and I hope you will share it and let people know, hey, I was listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and this lawmaker, Adam Schwadron, like he explained succinctly and very clearly why this matters. And I'm guilty of this sometimes, too, and I'll always fess up to Hannah. I'm like, Hannah, sometimes, like, if it doesn't get in my way, personally, not professionally, if it doesn't get in my way, I don't care. As a matter of fact, her fiance yesterday, I'm asking him yesterday, I'm not happy about the prospect of having to wear shoes for the wedding when it comes up.
Yeah, you're really bent out of shape about this, and I feel like it's a very minor detail.
Good, and I hope it is, because here's the thing: it's going to be your day, and and it might be cold because it's Black Friday. It's the Friday after Thanksgiving, so it might be really cold that day. But I can't do it, man. I really can't. But I'm asking because it's your day, and I will do that for you if it's important to you, Hannah. I would do anything for you, including wearing shoes. But
other than pay my student loan debt, you jerk.
Well, I might have to do that anyway too. Joe needs them votes, man. He's meeting with 13 other folks today to try to find out, dang it, how can we cram this thing through? And one of the questions we get, Supreme Court said you can't do it. How are they still trying to push this through? They're using a different mechanism of the law.
Yeah, and actually, Hannah, Joe Biden is helping you with the Inflation Reduction Act because he's inflating the currency, so he's inflating away your debt obligation. The dollar's worth less, so that it's easier to pay back when it's
Bidenomics.
You were saying about Adam Schwadron.
Adam Schwadron.
I took the air out of the room, I guess. Sorry.
Adam Schwadron. And I'm guilty of this. Well, if it doesn't get my way, I don't care. But a lot of things they do impact us, whether we realize it or not. There are some consequences, and I'll go back to, and I think we're in a great point right now. I'm sorry to see things that are happening on a worldwide level. I'm sorry about your financial situation, and I'm sorry that you have that stress in your head that you're getting paid and you're putting money through this, and that, and everything is infinitely more expensive. I'm sorry that these things are happening, and that does get in my way, and I feel bad for that. But I think we're in a wonderful time right now where we can take everything that's happening and we can say, this is all without being complaining, without banging. We don't have to go Bill Eigel about it. We can point in very factual terms, and we can say it with kindness, and we can be polite, because you know what? Whenever we're polite and kind with our message, people pay attention. When you start yelling and banging on the desk and calling people aren't listening. They're like, oh, I like that guy. He's on fire. He's got passion. But they're not listening. You're talking to the same people. We already have those people. We already have them. I think we can quit talking to the choir here, and we can be very polite and factual by pointing out a couple of things here and how these are traceable to the President of the United States of America. For example, the Afghanistan pullout. He killed some of our service members because him and the people that he hired to work for him and help him with these things, they didn't know what they were doing. And then they said, well, we'll just leave the weapons there because it's cheaper. Those weapons are now being used by Hamas. to attack Israel. Okay? That's cause and effect. You can look at some of these other things that Joe Biden has done and not done. For example, I'll go back to the Afghanistan pullout. It's another one. We have on record NATO saying Putin invaded Ukraine because of Joe Biden's perceived weakness on the worldwide stage. This is why. Joe Biden decided to release the $6 billion to Iran. And because of that, now Iran, who helped Hamas plan this attack on Israel, now they are going to have all this money. And yes, they do not have it yet. Simple analogy here. You won $1 billion over the weekend in the Powerball. You got the money. You don't have the check in your bank account yet, but guess what you're doing with the money you do have right now? You're spending it. All of these, in a very factual way, very easily point to the President of the United States. I hope you have this conversation with people that are on the fence about how to vote, and probably not just in presidential elections, but in other stuff. Those are traceable. It's all traceable to Joe, and these are all facts. Thank you. But Adam Schwadron here, man, hits it out of the park in 60 seconds about how this affects us and why we should be paying attention. Where can we find this interview, Hauswirth?
939theeagle.com. It's up on the homepage, and KWS.com. I have a picture of the representative on the House floor speaking. It's a file photo, but the full interview is on there, about 12 minutes, 41 seconds. You're going to play, though, about a 60-second excerpt.
We asked him, why should we be paying attention to this here in mid-Missouri?
The reason you need to pay attention to what is happening there is because the United States has recognized Israel as one of its strongest allies in the Middle East. People that want death to Israel, they chant death to Israel, death to Jews. They also chant death to America. That border was one of the most fortified borders always watched. You take a look at our southern border and what's happening down there, where we can't even build a wall and the people are flooding in. We have no idea who is flooding into America. We could be seeing attacks like this where they're just driving around randomly shooting. We're always told you don't need an AR-15. Well, there may be a time where if they are just driving around the streets of St. Louis and randomly just shooting whomever they see on the street, they could be hiding amongst these people coming across our border and becoming sleeper cells here. So I would say, yes, we do need to care about what's going on there, as well as what's going on our southern border.
60 seconds. Explains why we should be paying attention, even here in Missouri, even the heart of Missouri.
It was a very powerful interview, and again, I encourage people to listen to the full interview. That was a very. You really can't cut that soundbite up. That 60 seconds you played to get the full context of what he was saying.
The C word.
Context. And in really background. But the other thing I thought was significant that he mentioned, Brandon, is he mentioned the bipartisan trip that he and 5 other lawmakers took in December. And he mentioned this Iron Dome installation. And he mentioned several lawmakers that he went along the trip with. And he emphasized very bipartisan. One of them was Senator Carla May, who listened to our interview last night and tweeted at me after listening to it, and was obviously very complimentary with this trip that they went on. Basically, I'm paraphrasing what she says. Senator May, who's a Democrat, by the way, she said that it was barbaric what happened in Israel and horrible, and that she thought the trip was worthwhile. They learned a lot. So, again, this is one of those bipartisan trips. We talked off air. I did not even know they had gone on the trip. I don't think most people did. Didn't get a lot of coverage, if at all, at the time. There may have been other things going on as well, but I did think that was a pretty interesting tweet from Senator May, who, by the way, is running for the U.S. Senate as well. But I encourage people to listen to that interview.
And you said bipartisan. It was Senator Rizzo, I think, was listed, which is a very liberal person, definitely. So.
And I like State Senator Carla May. I got to sit next to her at the governor's prayer breakfast. The governor invited her to be up on stage with him, and we sat right next to each other, and we got to chatting. And she reminded me of Mrs. Bell, which is an actual name of a third grade teacher. It's not just Stephanie Bell, who's back on Friday, but a third grade teacher at Fanning Middle School in St. Louis. And the teacher and she and I would get to talking. And when I say talking, I mean she would get to disciplining me for stuff. But she would say, "Oh, honey child, And the Senator Carla May at the governor's prayer, we were talking, and she'd go, "Oh, honey child."
Oh, that's
honey
nice.
Child. I love her.
That's sweet.
Yeah. By the way, there is a piece coming out in the Missourian newspaper, and it has to do with child care. And this is something John Marsh and we were at this event in Cole County earlier this year. The chamber put on, said, man, this is going to be a burgeoning issue for mid-Missouri. Just last week, there was a big event. Steve Spellman, who's hanging out with us this morning, has written a piece. Should be posted in the next few days. What's the big takeaway from your piece that you've written?
Yeah, I put that in for the Columbia Missourian. Should be online tomorrow, probably in print Thursday. But, just observing, child care crisis. Any parent and people familiar, looked up hire a daycare and there aren't enough slots and it costs a lot. And you're like, well, geez, we need to do something. And the conclusion from politicians and business groups seems to be, well, what kind of subsidy? But it's kind of pushing on a string because who wants to do that work? What Americans, watching your own kid changing their own poopy diapers?
Nope.
Runny noses, they don't feel good, they're grumpy. You have love and care of your own kid. But somebody else's kid, that's a hard job. And when you can go $20 an hour at Chick-fil-A or a store and doing that day in, day out, it's tough. So in the labor pool, I've talked to, folks that run daycares, good thing. They can't find people, and that's been for many years. The labor pool to do that is tough. And, the thing is, we're asking, a lot of parents, like my cousin, they had their first child, they're in their 30s, and she has a work-from-home job, and she's kind of worked it out. But in the end, she just needs to work for their medical insurance and stuff. But at the end of the day, she just wants to be with her baby. Yeah. And she don't want to go to an office and be away from her baby. She had maternity leave, and it's like, I like this. This is the best thing I can do in my life. And it gets all political and all of this. And you know what? If you got gainful employment, you're a Stephanie Bell and you're hitting it out of the park and you can afford to hire daycare, okay, that's fine. That works for your priorities, your middle income, and it's a stretch. But especially working class folks, you're asking somebody, hey, go work outside the home, go work at an office or a store and hire out to daycare that it's eating up half of your income. Like, what are you really working for? Mm-hmm. And I give a few solutions about parents that I talked to that made it work. They needed income in the home, but they wanted to be with their baby. And they worked it out, whether they watch them and run daycare, watch other people's kids, they work from home job, did other things, tag team parent. Just thinking outside the box, because not enough Americans want to be daycare workers. And you can subsidize the heck out of it. It's pushing on a string.
And you start subsidizing it, it means I'm paying for it, right?
What people without young kids are subsidizing people with young kids.
Coming up a few minutes from now, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. And by the way, tag on to what we did yesterday about Hannah's What's Hot with Hannah, former funeral home for sale in Massachusetts. The house being haunted is what people are saying. We've got a couple of listeners that said they live in a house that's haunted. They're willing to share their stories coming up at 7:35. But first, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah.
There's a bit of a moral argument happening on the Wake Up in Missouri Facebook page right now.
Ooh, an argument. 7:25-ish, which means
it's 7:26, and let me guess what you're about to say. It's Steve's fault.
Steve.
Sorry, I don't know what it is, but sorry.
No, Steve, I'll let you go. And see, that's the thing. You know, we're supposed to do this at this time. We're supposed to do that. But I'm not going to stop when somebody gets passionate about subsidies and child care and things like that. And Steve's on fire. I'm not going to stop. Oh, sorry. We got to go talk about farm animals, Steve. You know what I mean?
No, but you will blame him after the commercial break for us being late.
How often do you actually hit 7:25? Regular listeners know it's always tardy.
All right. Time for what?
Throw me under the bus. Okay.
Bus drivers gone wild. We covered a story locally a few months ago. John, it was a school bus driver who kicked the kids off the bus, right? After running over a couple mailboxes.
Repeatedly running over the mailboxes.
That's a bad day at work. It's also a bad day at work when your kid's bus driver gets busted for drinking on the job. And the bus driver is a 60-year-old lady who has been driving for this bus company, for this local school district in Long Island for 15 years. And everyone loves her. The kids love her. She's known for being super sweet. And yet she got busted for drinking on the job. She was busted drinking a White Claw. Now, she's claiming that she did not know that White Claws had alcohol in them. She thought she was essentially drinking a sparkling water.
Like those things Steph drinks all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Stephanie likes to drink a brand of water called Liquid Death, and they come in like tall boy cans. And if you don't know any better, at first glance, you think she's drinking beer, but really it's just flavored water.
Wink.
No, wink. It truly is just flavored water. So what do you guys think? Do you think she should be let off the hook?
Man, you know, that's a tough one. I would think then, because at first that sounds reasonable, because there's another one, and I don't know if it's an energy drink or what, but several years ago, when Trevor was still really young, somebody was drinking NOS, which I guess is just an energy drink.
I think so.
Yeah. I would have swore it was booze, and I didn't want them drinking around my kid, and I kind of threw a fit. But, yeah, it was just but I would think then once you taste it, wouldn't this bus driver have known there's got booze in it?
Well, and the bus driver's also claiming that it says in one place on the can in really small print that it's alcoholic. But the White Claw logo in big letters says hard seltzer. So to me, that's a giveaway that it's got alcohol. She's also currently going through chemotherapy and is claiming that she can't taste alcohol because of that. So does that change your answer?
Nope. Maybe.
Oh, well.
I was coming up the steps, and then I felt two hands just...
Oh, man. People living in haunted houses. Not living in a haunted house like that you go and pay money for here during October, John, but like a house that's haunted. You know what I mean? We did. By the way, welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Mr. John Marsh. I'm glad you're back, man.
Good morning. How are you?
We miss you when you're gone, buddy. I do. Stephanie's gone.
Notice he didn't say that he misses us.
I miss
you terribly.
Oh, thank you.
I miss all y'all when you're not here. Steph's back on Friday. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Steve Spellman is hanging out with us.
Yeah, good morning.
He's a local dude. Does a lot. I cannot find a better word than local activist, and I hate that word because it sounds
commentator,
local commentator, local politics. We should get you to comment about the finalists for the Columbia Police Department's replacement.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Also, I had to laugh because when they first announced that they had some finalists, wasn't there like 8 of them? To me, that's not. That's not a
semifinalist. It's quarterfinalist.
Yeah,
or something, yeah.
Eight is not really narrowing it down that much.
We have 187 finalists for this job. We'll talk
like
about
a round robin softball tournament.
Yeah, everybody's in. My name is Branden. Something we can do for you. 874-9390. Every morning, 7:25-ish, we do something called What's Hot with Hannah. It's just kind of fun little stuff. And yes, some you take to work, share with your friends. Yesterday's was pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a funeral home that is for sale in Massachusetts, and it was a home that was converted to a funeral home that they are advertising could be turned back into a home. It's 3 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, which is weird. And on the real estate sign that sits in the yard saying that the property is for sale, someone keeps putting up a sign that says probably haunted.
And so we had folks, and this is why we love our Wake Up Mid-Missouri family so much. People listen because people just start I lived in a house. It was haunted. I've done that.
Yeah.
And then some of these folks willing to come on and talk about it.
Cool.
Stephanie is here. Good morning, Stephanie. What town are you in this morning, Steph?
I'd rather not say.
Okay. All right. I understand. So you live or you used to live in a haunted house?
Currently.
All right. Tell us about that.
So we've lived here for about 12 years, and ever since, from the very beginning, things have been happening, but it's everything. Like, we see things move that shouldn't be moving, dogs barking where they shouldn't be, cats watching the walls where there's nothing there, sounds, smells. We've been touched before. Just the whole gamut. It started out when I was cleaning the house before we moved in and heard a really low growl. We've seen, we have seen orbs. We had a television show actually come to our house because of all the footage that we have. And we have EMPs and photographs and stuff like that. And they actually came out and did a whole thing on our house. And we decided not to publish it because it was very obvious that it was our house, even though we were to take down all of our photos during the shooting and everything. And we have children who are very deeply affected by all of this, which is why we did it. We wanted a cleansing. We wanted to find out what was going on. And we decided not to have it on air because we didn't want our kids to be affected by it because, you know, we live in a small town, and if somebody were to see that and recognize our house, it could come back to our
privacy
children.
type thing, yeah.
Now, Stephanie, do you know the story behind your house? Like, do you know if something happened?
I do, but we didn't know that when we moved in. So it used to be a hospice facility, like a small hospice facility, and my dining room was where they would store the bodies when people would pass away for the coroner to come pick them up. And that room is very haunted, and it's one of those places in the middle of the night you don't even look down the hallway because it's darker than dark, and it's just a very
I got the EBGBs when you said that.
Yeah, I'm getting a little freaked out. And you said your kids are affected by this, and I think so. I have a million questions, but not a million minutes to do the show.
Right.
Like, is it
I have a million stories too, but
is it mostly like frightening stuff, or is it mostly just like stuff?
So a lot of it has been very frightening, but especially for my kids. But what eventually got it to not stop, but to really slow down was we were taught that you're bigger than your fear. And so you just tell, and I used to tell this to my children, you don't want it there, tell it to go away. They have no right to be here. And that's what really initially kind of turned everything around for us. So, but the scariest thing they've seen so many scary things. It's just, and moving has never really been an option.
Yeah, so that's my next question. First of all, so what's like the scariest thing that you and your family have experienced in this haunted house that you are living in?
Well, my daughter, the other day, we were just talking about it, and she said that, when you're kids and you would take like a wintergreen light or a lightsaber and you would chew it up in the mirror in the dark and it looked like sparks.
Blue sparks.
Well, I told her that, and she did it one night. And she saw a huge shadow person behind her, and she came out screaming and crying and very upset. And I have felt somebody touch my head like you would a child's head. And then I said, go away, you can't be here. And it went like that, and just and it left, and you feel the presence leave. But we've had so many things like that's just two very, very small.
This is listener Stephanie, lives here in Missouri, says she lives in a house that's haunted. Moving is not an option. I got to tell you. So I've experienced a ghost before. I've shared the story numerous times. I didn't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in stuff like that. Fortunately, my ghost was pretty cool, and she happened to be hot, and she kissed me on the cheek. So
you're so weird.
So that's my experience.
It's a weird date.
Yeah,
not his weirdest. Funny enough.
In doubt.
Could be his longest, though.
Maybe my longest. Points for Stephanie this morning. How about that? Stephanie, is there anything else? So it's better now. You had it cleansed. How do you get your house cleansed of a ghost?
I'd rather not say, but when the television show came, they did bring someone with them to kind of help with that, and that did die down for about, 4 months or so. But then it started back up again. I think it's more of, like, we live with it. We know that it's there, and we're not bothered by it anymore. We're not scared of it anymore, or whatever it is. And so it's not fun for them, I guess, anymore. And then, I've also had somebody else come in and go through the house and bless it. And it's pretty much stopped. And but it was very, very scary for my kids.
Stephanie, you take care. And, tell your family we said hello. We're very appreciative that you would share your story here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning, okay?
No problem.
All right, bye-bye. Now we go to Randy.
What's with the music?
Morning, guys.
Randy, what's up? What town you live in?
I live in California, Missouri.
Okay.
Oh, hey.
All right.
Yep.
Tell us, so you're saying you live in a house that's haunted?
We lived in a house in Independence, Missouri for 2 years.
Yeah, and what happened at this house?
Well, so the day we signed the papers to buy the house, pulling up carpet, there was hardwood floors underneath, and my wife and I were in separate rooms, and I saw an older gentleman in a trucker hat walking around, kind of checking out the rooms, kind of checking out the house. And it was a ghost. It was an absolute ghost. And then I didn't say anything. And then a couple minutes later, my wife asked if I saw something, and she said she saw the same thing. And we later found out that he had died in the house a few months earlier. And so I think he was just kind of checking us out to make sure we were okay people. And we didn't see him again in the 2 years we were there. But lots of things that happened while we lived there for 2 years. We spent quite a bit of time downstairs in the basement, but it was kind of a creepy basement. And, we would hear the doors when there wasn't anyone down there. And the TV would come on at 3 a.m, full blast. Radio would come on at 3 a.m, full blast on a regular basis. There was one time where my mom and she was just holding it in her hand. All of a sudden, she said it got pushed over. So
I think the ghost is intercepting your cell phone signal, Randy.
Oh, okay.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I'm driving.
So was it frightening, or was it just kind of like? He's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. What I'm hearing here is not, angel demon type things. There's those interactions that people maybe describe, seeing some clouds part or whatever type things as well. But a specter of a deceased person that maybe died in that building that's maybe still floating around, and people have an interaction that they can see. So, yeah, it's kind of George Norrie, Coast to Coast AM's on this station as well, and he talks about that type of stuff in a very serious way. Like, hey, what you kind of like you did. Yeah.
Now, John, we got a text message at 874-9390 for you. It says, has John Marsh tried asking Sluggo to leave?
Yeah, that was a deal in the radio station building that one of the engineers died a rather untimely death, and people swore up and down after hours they saw him lurking in the radio station for years afterwards.
Haunted radio.
I'm wondering if this texter is maybe a former coworker, because they say, I still have video of Sluggo interrupting a recording.
Interesting.
There you go. You never know. Yeah, they used to have to leave out, no joke, Bud Lights for him if you wanted him to leave you alone.
Really?
There you go. By the way, it's been great hanging out with you here. I'm going to have to chat in a little bit. But I'm going to be back Tuesday of next week filling in for Dr. Randy Tobler from 4 to 6 next Tuesday. And I've got to reach out to the Jefferson City Paranormal Society. They have a haunted house event near Halloween. And I've talked to them before years ago. And so maybe similar conversation about these are ghost hunters, but they're not the BS, reality show.
Like
this, it's a thing.
Google Jefferson City Hobo Hill House if you want to hear about a haunted house that you can go stay in Jefferson City.
No, thank you.
I hope you were watching our YouTube channel, those stories, especially first listener Stephanie sharing her story about some of the things they experienced. Woo.
Nasdaq up 53, S&P 500 up 27.
I'm going to be monitoring the stock market for you. We'll take a look at your futures coming up at 8:25 in the Morning Bell. Business news with a twist, and what we're covering: free pizza that you might be able to take advantage of, and price increases. We're going to be doing that coming up at 8:25 this morning.
And that would be all, except for this.
Apparently no more shouting at the devil in Poland. No more going to hell on bus 666. The bus to the town of hell on Poland's Baltic coast has been a big tourist trap, but now some Christian conservatives are saying the bus leading to a place that sounds like the word hell in English shouldn't be 666 anymore, so they say they're going to flip it, and it'll be bus 669 in the future. We're not touching that one. Local media said the bus company acted under the pressure of Christian groups pushing for the change, and a Catholic publication argued that it had satanic overtones, and to present the reality of eternal damnation as amusing in any other way is just plain stupidity. But many in the Polish community, including the journalists, even Catholic ones, thought it was a pretty good joke. And there's no word if Hell, Michigan will be following suit and changing the bus line there. Now you know the rest of that ghost story.
About that I thought they were going to say, well, let's just switch some of the numbers around. Instead of making it 666, let's switch it. It'll be still 666. By the way, right now it is hotter than hell. It's hotter here than it is in Hell, Michigan. It's
Wow.
It is 43 here right now. Temp 38 degrees in Hell, Michigan this morning. Technically, John,
hotter than hell.
Amen, brother. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert. There's John. Producer Hannah is here. Stephanie Bell is going to be back coming up on Friday. Coming up Monday, a little bit after 8 o'clock this morning. Laura Ashley Miller is with the
Monday, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
You could see how you could get the two confused.
It's not a stretch, and I do go Biden sometimes. That's one of the things that President Magoo and I have in common. And if you're not familiar, people say, so it's funny when we refer to the president as President Magoo. A lot of folks, they either laugh because they get the reference, or they go, I don't understand the Magoo. There used to be an old cartoon back in the day, and it was called Mr. Magoo, and it was this guy that just bumbled around through life, and he didn't talk very well, and it was the voice of Mr. Magoo. I can't remember his name, but he played Thurston Howell on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
That guy.
You know who Joe Biden also looks like?
Who?
Is it the old man Walter puppet that, the famous...
not Bill Engvall.
The famous ventriloquist.
You know that guy that everybody can see right now. What's his name?
He's got Peanut.
Yes.
He's got Walter. Anyway,
Yes.
Joe Biden looks like Walter.
Yeah, he does. This is a clip from an old Mr. Magoo cartoon.
Well, I've come to take you for a little spin in the studs. Say, what are you up to, mother of mine?
And so he's kind of, if you listen and watch, he just bumbles around through life. Hence the President Magoo thing. And incidentally, they kind of look alike. So coming up a little bit after 8 o'clock, Laura Ashley Miller is with the National Breast Cancer Foundation. Of course, October, National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We learned yesterday from producer Hannah's fiance, this is Fire Awareness Week. But as it relates to breast cancer, one of the things we're going to be covering, younger women. And I don't know what the guidance is for women. I know for like when it comes to things like colonoscopy for dudes, I think and I don't know, maybe it's everybody, but once you get over 45, they recommend every 10 years or something. I've got both mom and dad who have had colon cancer in my family, so I go every 5 years. So I'm getting one of those next week. That's fun. Can't wait. We're going to be streaming that live on our YouTube channel.
No. Be the first time in your life you're not full of it, though.
Laura Ashley Miller, younger women getting
has recognized Israel as one of its strongest allies in the Middle East. People that want death to Israel, they chant death to Israel, death to Jews. They also chant death to America. That border was one of the most fortified borders always watched. You take a look at our southern border and what's happening down there, where we can't even build a wall and the people are flooding in. We have no idea who is flooding into America. We could be seeing attacks like this where they're just driving around randomly shooting. We're always told you don't need an AR-15. Well, there may be a time where if they are just driving around the streets of St. Louis and randomly just shooting whomever they see on the street, they could be hiding amongst these people coming across our border and becoming sleeper cells here. So I would say, yes, we do need to care about what's going on there, as well as what's going on our southern border.
All right, State Rep Adam Schwadron, reps St. Charles area, joining us on the show yesterday. He's in the Missouri House of Representatives. He's Jewish. He shared with us his personal experience after we saw what happened over the weekend in Israel and what continues to happen. And we asked him the question, why does this matter? Why should we be paying attention? And I thought that a very powerful answer. This, as we're just learning this morning, thousands of special interest, what they're called special interest aliens from countries in the Middle East, have been arrested by Border Patrol agents attempting to cross the U.S. southern border illegally. This is over the past 2 years, by the way. We keep talking about the border and illegal immigration. Very different than legal immigration, okay? Illegal immigration. And a stunning lack of concern from those that are in charge. This is why it matters. Do me a favor. You can go to our website. It's 939theeagle.com. Also, KWOS.com. Brian Hauswirth has posted our conversation with Adam Schwadron, state rep from the St. Charles area. He's posted that interview in its entirety on the website, so it's easily accessible. You can go and find it and listen to it, and I would highly encourage it. I thought it was a very insightful conversation with Mr. Schwadron yesterday.
It really was. And, I look back, we interviewed so many different lawmakers, and I don't recall interviewing. I know we didn't interview him on this, but we did go back. I looked at a story, and we had done something that was kind of an interesting bill that wasn't dealing with this, but we've had him on before. But this was very powerful. He talked about the Iron Dome installation. He talked about the security at the border, and he said we need to pray that Israel succeeds. Basically, the two messages I took from Branden, number one, beside the very powerful clip you just played, he said the same people that want to destroy Israel want to destroy the United States. He said that. And he talked about that bipartisan trip. And I will tell you, Democratic Senator Carla May apparently listened to the interview, and she tweeted at me last night, and I retweeted it. It's on my personal Twitter account. She was just horrified by by what happened in Israel, and basically the message was it was a positive trip. So that trip to Israel, Democrats and Republicans, it was bipartisan, and but I encourage people to look at it. You can't miss the interview, 939theeagle.com and KWS.com.
And how do we find you on Twitter?
At Brian on the Air. It should be at the very top of the page. I'll start posting stories here shortly. Should be the top of the page. It'll be a message from Senator Carla May talking about this and what she experienced and how she feels about these attacks.
And I love Carla May. I got to hang out with her, more than once, but we got to sit next to each other at the governor's prayer breakfast this year. I love Carla. I really do. Hannah, how do we find you on Twitter?
Producer_Hannah.
Marsh?
KWS News on Twitter.
And I am at Rathert Branden. That's right. On Twitter.
It's literally your name, and you can't.
I can't get that right.
He has to look up at the monitor and read it off of Facebook Live.
Well, I was going to say just get onto Twitter and search Branden Rathert, and that's how you will find me on Twitter.
And I definitely link to you a lot, but I would agree with you on Carla May. She is someone who could probably stay in that seat maybe for the rest of her life. She's very popular, but because of term limits, she's not. By the way, she is running for the U.S. Senate, seeking the Democratic nomination to challenge Josh Hawley in 2024. So we'll see what happens there.
Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Of course, October, National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We got a good friend of ours on one of our country stations, Scotty Cox. He wears pink every single day in the month of October, and I do it Well, I do it twice a week because I have 2 pink shirts in my wardrobe, but I support it. My mom is a breast cancer survivor. A dear friend of mine, she's had a double mastectomy. She has survived breast cancer more than once. So I want to bring in Ashley Miller with the National Breast Cancer Foundation. Ashley, we welcome you into Mid-Missouri. Thank you for joining us. What's probably one of the big things that we need to know this morning, Ashley?
Oh, gosh. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for having me. You know, with an opportunity like this, if one person hears this today and gets screened, we're doing our job. I think, honestly, the biggest takeaway would just be, you know, people realize it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. They start to see pink ribbons appear kind of on the forefront of the national conversation. But we know to help those facing breast cancer that awareness alone isn't enough. So NBCF is really asking everybody to get involved. You know, it's got to be more than awareness. We need people to get screened, make a donation, and take action.
Well, and here's my story with so my mom, she's had breast cancer, but my dad, and we're very open about this because whenever the big guy comes and co-hosts here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, it's something we talk about because it's a health issue and it affects, you know, folks in our age range. He got colon cancer, and it was not through a screening. He was getting checked out for something else, and they're like, hey, there's a problem here. My dad wishes he'd been doing regular screenings. But guess who does regular screenings now? This guy. Guess who's getting one on Tuesday? I just thought I'd share that with y'all at 8:15 in the morning. So I will not be here on Tuesday. I'll be getting. But here, and I bring that up. Here's why. Because, Ashley, it wasn't important to me, you know, the screenings. Yeah, I hear the PSAs. I see this, whether pink, whatever, for whatever the cancer is, until it affected me, until it got my dad. And then I was like, oh, man, I should be doing this. And that's my encouragement, and you can probably expand on that, is don't wait until something like that happens. What is it that we can say to say, go do this? Don't wait. This is not just a PSA, not just a commercial. Do it.
Absolutely. And I just want to say I can empathize with you. I lost my dad to colon cancer as well. And so it's a strong cause connection for me. But the reality of breast cancer is we all know somebody, right? I mean, it's 1 in 8 women that'll be diagnosed with breast cancer. But the other stat that we don't talk about is that there's 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the United States. So it's just really important for individuals to know their body. I mean, to your point, you hear these PSAs and these recommendations, get your screening at 40. The unfortunate reality is there's a lot of recommendations right now that could be pushed to 50. And National Breast Cancer Foundation firmly believes that 40 is that age without a family history. So the way that works is if my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 30, I would then start getting my screenings at the age of 30. So, you know, we always encourage individuals to just, again, know their body. If something feels weird, if something looks off, you know, the symptoms of breast cancer vary for a case-by-case basis, but for every individual. So you just have to know your body. And then don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. If you're not at a normal recommended screening age, don't hesitate to go to your healthcare provider and say, you know, this just doesn't feel right. And then, you know, if you don't get the help that you need or the resources there, you can certainly advocate for a second opinion or, you know, seek out National Breast Cancer Foundation. We're coast to coast in all 50 states and standing by ready to help individuals in the moment when they need it most.
Our time is 8:16, and we are speaking live with Ashley Miller. She is with the National Breast Cancer Foundation. She is joining us live here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, News Radio 950 KWS and 93.9theeagle.com. Ashley, I was at the City Hall last week, and I'll have some audio. I've been saving it because I had so much from the event. Talked to Barbara Buffalo about a couple of other things, but I was with the mayor, and they unveiled basically a pink ribbon around a police car that the Police Officers Association donated to that event. It's about breast cancer. But two things that stuck out about that I'd like you to comment. Number one, they mentioned that this affects men as well. That's something several of the speakers, females, said this affects men as well, which we don't normally think or at least talk about. And B, there was a woman who spoke, and I didn't want to ask her age. She's a wife, and I'll have the audio of her tomorrow morning, of a Columbia police officer. To your point, what you just said to Branden, her grandmother and mother had breast cancer. She had breast cancer. She's a breast cancer survivor too, and she talked about the importance of screening. It happened to her as well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, speaking specifically to men, we know about 298,000 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year, and comparatively about 2,800 men. So it's about 1%, less than 1% technically of men will be diagnosed, but NBCF navigates men too, right? I mean, our mission is helping women and men now. It's helping individuals in the moment. What really sets NBCF apart from other organizations is a lot of them are cure focused and research focused, and that's great. We need them to be successful at that. But we were established to help the individuals in the moment. So think everything from education to early detection, the screening, diagnostics, treatment, survivorship, and beyond. We come alongside the individual to remove the barriers to care. And I just really think it's important, and I'm glad that you brought that up, that we navigate any individual that's diagnosed with breast cancer, not just women. The flip side of that is that we also navigate the caregivers. You know, we know that if the spouse, the parent, the friend, the child, if they're not implored to help the patient, that patient won't have a smooth journey. So we also navigate the caregivers to make sure that they not only have the mental health resources that they need, but the tools and the resources and the programs readily available to them to help the individual that's diagnosed. So a big part of that is just us connecting them to resources that focus on helping them with their spouse, like I said, or their friend or their daughter, their mother, sister, whatever it may be. Specifically to the family history, you know, as technology advances, even kind of in the way of AI, which has been interesting. We're cautiously optimistic about the use of AI technology, but we're detecting breast cancer more frequently and earlier. And then the flip side of that is, of course, with social media, you're just hearing about it more, right? So the good thing is that there's hope. I mean, when breast cancer is detected in the earliest stages, and this will blow you guys, I mean, you'll blow your minds. When it's caught in the earliest localized stages, the 5-year survival rate's 99%. So I just can't speak enough about know your body, get your screening, and encourage the most important females in your life to do the same.
Yeah, don't wait until you go, it's affected somebody in my life. National Breast Cancer Foundation, Charity Navigator, by the way, an incredibly high score. And I do want to take this opportunity to mention Tim Tinnon and his Red Slipper Warrior Project, which is different than what you guys do, but it's a local project, and they help folks, they help women going through cancer right now. Tim Tinnon, Red Slipper Warrior Project. Ashley Miller, National Breast Cancer Foundation, thank you so much for joining us this morning on our show. We're glad that you could be here. It's very important stuff you do, nationalbreastcancer.org. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, coming up 5 minutes from now, we're going to be doing Morning Bell Business News, a little twist. We'll look at your Small Business Week or Small Business Month or something, I want to encourage you. We talk about, all these national and I hate to mention national businesses when we have, great local places that we can go to. I just really want to encourage you supporting places like Quick Car Wash and Detail in the Jefferson City area, Midmo Telecom and Security, Como Vapor and Columbia, places like that. But just some of these local places, I don't know. I just think it's important. And I'll tell you, I learned the importance of small local businesses. My first job in radio, two things, John. It was in a little oldie station, literally in a cornfield in northern Indiana. And I also had to do sales. So I had to put on a suit every day and go out with my attaché case and, hi, my name is Brendan, and I'm from WNJY. I would like to talk to you about your advertising needs. And I was horrible at it. Kudos to anybody who can make an impressive living off of sales. But I learned the importance of supporting small local businesses when I was doing that. And I want to remind you, Zimmer is a small local business too. And I get it. People want to pull back on advertising sometimes to save money. I don't know who said it. Maybe it was Jimi Hendrix. I think I read this Jimi Hendrix on the internet back in 1963. I think.
What, excuse me while I kiss this guy?
Yeah. And Jimi Hendrix posted, who used to be the drummer for Metallica. He posted on his Facebook page, cutting back on advertising to save money is like stopping your clock to save time. I'm like, yeah, Jimi Hendrix, he was a pretty wise dude. Okay, free pizza. Domino's is offering free medium pizza. And the program here is really, it's not about the free pizza, the program they're doing. It's called Domino's Emergency Pizza Program.
Wow.
Right?
That sounds really intense.
It does. It's just an excuse to get your info because more valuable than a $7.99 pizza or whatever from Domino's is your information, and they want it. So here's what you do. But basically, like, you order a pizza and then you get a freebie for like whenever you need it, like in an emergency basis. But here's some of the steps you have to go to. Place either a delivery order online or digital carryout order. To do that, there they get your info. Within 7 days, you can claim the emergency pizza by joining a rewards program. Again, it's about your info. It's not about the pizza. Information on you is money. Then within 30 days, you enter another program. Again, it's your information. And then you do all of those steps, and then you'll be qualified to get an emergency pizza. If the cost of this is going up, postage stamps. I think they're, I don't even know what the cost of a postage stamp. Oh, it's 66 cents now.
Yep, I am painfully aware.
Yeah, I'll bet you are.
How much did you spend in postage sending out the wedding invites?
Well, we had a little bit of a heads up that the price was going up, so some family members kind of helped us stockpile, but a couple $100 easily.
Oh, now it's going up to
condemning Hamas, supporting Israel, but the House can't vote on it because, well, there's no speaker.
Neil Cavuto, Fox News, by the way. So some other things that the House can't vote on some stuff. You mean they can't vote to spend my money on things right now? Maybe there's something to this no speaker thing. I will tell you, more than one news outlet reporting this morning that potentially the folks in the House are looking at even Democrats and even those the 8 Republicans voting with all the Democrats to get rid of Kevin McCarthy. Those 8 Republicans voted with the Democrats going, you know what? What if just on an interim basis, while this Israel thing's going, maybe we bring McCarthy back into the fold just on an interim basis? I doubt very seriously it would happen. John, what's your I don't think it would happen, but
I don't see it happening, but there is talk.
There is, and
he didn't rule out coming back either.
Well, and he said, yes, he's like, hey, if you need me to fill the gap on an interim basis, I can do that. Whatever you need. I'm willing to serve my country and my constituents of California. Welcome into the show. There is John Marsh.
Good morning.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Steph is back on Friday. Brian Hauswirth is here. My name is Branden Rathert. 874-9390. 874-9390. One of the things we talk about here on the show, because I want to do something really cool. John, do you know who David Attenborough is?
If you ever watch PBS, he was the guy who did all those life shows with the animals, and then they go into. They had one where they went into space and all that.
Yeah, and he's just got this rich, incredible voice, and I like a lot of the nature documentaries that he does. Been doing it for years, BBC, and then Planet Life, and all those things. And he can take like the very simplest of things and make it sound so rich and entertaining.
Like even more so than Morgan Freeman, I think.
Yeah, more so than Morgan Freeman, and more so, I think, than James Earl Jones. But he can take something like, how do you make rain? And we could ask Brian Hauswirth. Brian Hauswirth, well, the moisture from the ocean rolls up in the clouds, and then you have rain. Or you could get David Attenborough to explain it.
Water, evaporating from the surface of the sea, condenses to form great clouds.
Right. Everything is just incredibly fascinating.
Yeah,
and that's
voice.
Yeah, what a good storyteller can do. Somebody, and I thought you just might enjoy this. It's about $1.55, about a minute 55 seconds long. So somebody's done the voice of this, and I think it'd be cool to have David Attenborough do play-by-play for college football. It might take a while to spit it out.
I could see him next to Mike Kelly.
Yeah,
that'd be great. I've heard him before. I just didn't know who it was. I've definitely recognized that voice.
Yeah. So somebody took his voice, and they're doing, and it's a spoof. It's the swamps of D.C. So that's the planet Earth special that he's doing now, and of course, there's a lot of pictures of Trump and Biden.
In the swamps of Washington D.C., we witness a most peculiar event. A group of tax dollar parasites gathers to discuss funding the lives of the very taxpayer that they rely upon for their existence. Somehow, these parasites cannot agree to give the American people any of the tax money that has been confiscated from them against their will. Yet they have been sending $223 million to a corrupt foreign regime every day for over a year. This group of parasites has become filthy rich from corruption, insider trading, influence peddling, and theft. The alpha parasite, known as a jackass, and his offspring, the dumb...
That's Joe, by the way, President Magoo.
...have been some of the most successful tax dollar parasites in history, sending historic amounts of cash to a corrupt foreign regime and receiving kickbacks as 10% for the big guy. As if sending all your cash to Borat was not enough, the alpha parasite and his minions have opened the southern borders. In an attempt to garner enough votes to remain in power, the parasites have opened the southern border, allowing millions of unvetted immigrants to suckle at the teat of our welfare system, bringing our social services to the brink of collapse while gaining new voters. As this elderly jackass nears the end of its life cycle, a truth evident by his garbled speech and lack of bowel control, the elder jackass will attempt to transfer his power and influence to this younger, more intellectually deficit jackass.
Kamala.
However, the younger jackass's lack of intellect and mule-like face has left it so unelectable that power can only be transferred through the death of the elder jackass. If you love America, please spay or neuter your political jackasses or vote them out of office.
That is pretty good.
Boy. So was that somebody that did his voice? Yeah,
I don't think it's really
AI.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
AI, by the way, is something that Stephanie turned us on to. It's been almost a year when I first learned about, and
and you got weird with it.
I did, and AI is something that's been out there for a long time. But what made this different, what the game changer was a year ago, all of a sudden it was available to people like producer Hannah and Brian Hauswirth. There's more concern that, hey, maybe we should, and I don't always subscribe to that. Like when people talk about, well, this is TikTok's fault, that's Facebook's fault. That's not their fault. It's the user's fault, even if it's a kid. I don't blame social media companies, and I don't blame artificial intelligence. It's as David Attenborough says, the intellectually disabled jackasses that get a hold of that stuff and use it. It's not the product.
Yeah, I certainly understand where you're coming from. I would just make one more point on that about storytelling. I mean, obviously an amazing voice and amazing, in Morgan Freeman can tell stories. I mean, I remember him in Shawshank Redemption, and he could talk about, eating, and it would make it sound interesting. But there's one other person I'm going to add to that list, and that is Keith Morrison from NBC's Dateline. He covers court, and he's been here to Columbia, and he's been to Jeff City as well many times. And, I don't know how he does it. There's just something intriguing about him that I just find fascinating, the way he can tell a story. Of course, he's got 2 hours. I have basically about 60 seconds to tell the same story unless I'm on a show. But by the same token, he's really good. I think he's up in that category with these guys.
Well, I will say this: Keith Morrison is no Brian Hauswirth. That is that for sure. And I do know who Keith Morrison is. I do see his stuff on like the that's not 48. I don't know, one of those
Dateline. Dateline. Yes, he was last here for Lindley Rennick.
Are you aware that there is a broadcast legend who's leaving? He's not leaving. He's retiring, I guess, from his job. And I don't know, is Dick Preston, has he been at KRCG?
Since 1968.
Wow.
1968.
That's right.
This guy has been practicing journalism, doing the news, doing television shows on our local CBS affiliate since I was not born.
Nor was I.
Brian Hauswirth and I, we were not born. Hannah was not born, obviously, but, the old guy context here.
Sure. And he was on the air at that time.
Yeah.
To put it
Cub reporter.
To put it in perspective, it would have been Lyndon Baines Johnson, but he's been at KRCG 55 years.
And I think his last show is Friday afternoon.
I believe so.
Sometime this week.
Hi, I'm KRCG's Dick Preston. Well, you may have seen me on TV from time to time. I've been here for more than 55 years and done just about every possible on-air job. I've anchored every newscast, produced many of them. I even filled in on sports and weather, and as a director. And I started as an announcer where I was put to work writing commercials and even co-hosting Showtime, the station's old children's program. Well, all that comes to an end this week when I retire. It'll be bittersweet. I'll miss anchoring the news at noon and providing the morning trivia on the news at sunrise and the wonderful people that I've had the privilege to work with. And I'll never forget the support of so many Mid-Missourians all these years. Thanks for making 55 years go by, well, pretty quickly.
How cool is that?
Oh, he's a dynamite guy. I mean, I'm telling you, he's had some health issues. I know that. He's talked a little openly about it and over the years, but I'm telling you, he is dynamite. His coverage, John will remember of the 1990. Remember, in 1993, there was no Twitter or anything, and I remember learning about a breach of a levee, and I believe it was the ABB plant from him and Mark Slavitt. Their coverage was amazing, and he's interviewed presidents. I believe he landed an interview, as I recall, with President Reagan when he came here to Columbia in 1986. But just a great guy, and I wish him the best and all the best in health.
I hope he enjoys retirement, hanging out with the grandkids, whatever it is that you want to do. I always get excited when I see people retire. My dad, who is now a tycoon in the oil industry, had to unretire because of Bidenomics. That is not true.
Maybe we can find Dick a job at the local Quick Shop.
Yeah, like my dad, slinging smokes and beers to construction workers during their lunch hours. Tonight, if we're always talking about getting involved, I think it's important. I've never wanted to be that guy that sits here and just complains about stuff and complains.
But here we are.
But I do try to get involved. I try to do things. I try to, whether it's emceeing the governor's prayer breakfast, whether it's going, I'll never forget, Stephanie and I hadn't been together that long, and we went with a young lady by the name of Hazel Miles to meet with, I think it was Ed Lewis, lawmaker from the Moberly area. And this young lady, who was 18 years old, she was trying to get some laws changed as it relates to getting your driver's license with eyesight. She asked for help, and Steph and I, we went to Mr. Lewis's office, and we sat with the family and that girl today because we say, get involved. Make a difference. So whether it's emceeing an event or doing whatever, I seriously believe in getting involved. And tonight, there is an opportunity for you to get involved. Pretty cool event. We're going to politicians that are going to be there. Number one, some chili. You can buy tickets at the door. You can also go to BooneCountyRepublicans.com, BooneCountyRepublicans.com. See more of the lineup. So doors open at 5:30. Program, so even if you get off work at 6, program doesn't start until 6:30. So you would have plenty of time. But the more important thing to me, it's not just about hearing what the politicians say. It's a bunch of Republicans. We pretty much already know what they're going to say, right? The important thing, the biggest thing in my mind is you're with some other folks that are also wanting to get involved. Other folks that are thinking like you, going, hey, man, what can we do to affect a difference, affect some change? BooneCountyRepublicans.com. No matter where you are, you should join us for the event tonight. As a matter of fact, Steve Spellman, who hung out with us this morning, helped us co-host the show. He's going to be there, and I'll be emceeing the event tonight. So that's some of what I got for leftovers. A couple of things that we didn't get a chance to get to before, and we've been covering this all morning. So I hope to see you out there. And if you do come up, say I will be. And this is the first time ever I'm going to do it, and I'm encouraged by Hannah, actually, producer Hannah, who I've been knowing since she was like 7 years old. I keep telling him, like, seriously, man, I had to wear shoes for a couple hours last week. Short of going to the gym, I can do that. I wear tennis shoes, but like when I had to wear dress-up shoes kind of ish last week.
Aww.
And it's really a thing. It's not just something to be laughing at. I can't do it.
You're gonna have to get used to it, man.
So I asked Hannah, I'm like, seriously, are you guys cool if I wear flip-flops at your wedding? And her fiance yesterday said, well, I can't repeat exactly what he said, but he basically said, I don't care. So thank you. But I think tonight I'm going to wear, because every time I go to these events, I'll wear, a jacket and tie. But I always feel obligated, John, to not be myself. And myself is wearing flip-flops. So I'll be the one dressed up tonight, but wearing flip-flops. Hopefully my friends with the Boone County Republicans and anybody in attendance tonight doesn't.
Oh, it becomes a running gag when we're out with you. It's like, hey, you must be Branden Rathert. They look at his feet.
I cannot tell you, and I'm not making this up, the number of times I thought that you were that guy, but then I saw you wearing flip-flops, and I knew that it was you. What do you got for leftovers this morning, Marsh?
Well, we've got the story that National News and the family locally reporting that Deborah Matthias, an American living in Israel who was born in Boone County, died while shielding her son from bullets fired by Hamas gunmen, and her Israeli husband died as well. This hitting way too close to home.
Yeah, and again, the other thing we've been covering this morning, I do really seriously hope you get a chance to go to our websites, 939theeagle.com and KWOS.com. We always, every day, typically, I guess, like by 10 o'clock, we have a podcast of the show, and it's all content. It's kind of like, I like to call it the Reader's Digest condensed version of the show. It's all the good stuff. It's like 30 minutes. Well, it's about 90 minutes worth of material, and it's broken up to each hour, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock hour. So if you called into the show or you heard a guest, you can go in there and check it out. The other thing that we do from time to time is then we also take the interview of somebody and post that separately. Conversation yesterday with State Representative Adam Schwadron. He's a Republican from the St. Charles area. He is Jewish, sharing kind of what this whole thing with Israel has been like for him personally and why we should be paying attention to what was going on. I thought just incredible. So that's one of the things that you can do, and maybe tell your friends, hey, if you think this doesn't get in your way with what's happening in Israel, you got to go check out KWOS.com, 939theeagle.com. You go to Wake Up Mid-Missouri On Demand podcast and check out the Adam Schwadron interview. Anything else for, the CDC has released the top 10 causes of death. We'll leave on a happy note before we get into my dad's favorite show.
Kind of a buzzkill.
Heart disease is number one on the list. And I bring that up